Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I am joined by my co-hosts, Mr. Michael Hall and Michael Reed. The Burgundy Zone is part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com, but we are rejoined by the draft guru himself, Mr. Ian Cummings of PFN365. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful Friday evening, Ian. Combine week, baby. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I love Combine Week. Every time you get the numbers to quantify these guys, and we always say, the Combine, we kind of make it more than it is, right? Like you want to put the tape first, obviously, okay, and you don't want to go back and like completely redesign your entire opinion based on a couple of numbers, right? But I'm not gonna lie, it is fun to look at the numbers and compare them to past guys and see how people stack up. That's always a fun part of it. So if you're analytically oriented, then it's always gonna be a fun time. So yesterday with the wide receivers was insane, especially that second group, and we got some more testing coming today, so it's always one of the best events of the year.
Yeah, and the day one, which was obviously yesterday, had tight ends, quarterbacks, and wide receivers. So who was the biggest standout from yesterday at the Combine, Ian?
I think if I had to pick the one biggest standout, I'd say Christian Watson. I mean, this was a guy from North Dakota State. He was at the Senior Bowl, stood out there, and really kind of brought his name onto the forefront. And he was already getting some day two buzz. And then he comes in yesterday, still measures in at 6'4", 208. Sometimes with those guys who are like 6'5", you're worried that they're actually like 6'3", right? But he's 6'4", so he's actually got that size. And then on top of that, had a 4.36 official 40, had I think a 39-inch vertical and a broad jump that was like 136 inches, which is like seventh all time for combine wide receivers. So this guy is explosive. And that shows up on tape. You get the ball in his hands. He's very good at opening those strides and getting upfield, very agile as well. So I think showing that explosiveness and that speed, especially for his size, he tested, I think his relative athletic score was like 9.98, which basically means he's better than 99.8% of receivers ever to test. So pretty insane numbers. So if you're looking for a guy, just get the ball in his hands, a dynamic threat, he's really boosting his stock, especially in that top 50 range. He might not get out of that range.
Yeah. Christian Watson, it was just unreal watching him. A lot of those wide receivers, it just seemed like all of them were incredibly fast. I know they had the stopwatch issue, which changed some 40 times, but a lot of wide receivers did great. Another person that was making headlines yesterday, of course, out of the quarterbacks, Kenny Pickett. Of course, we all know about his hand size. His hand size, 8.5 inches. The NFL cutoff line is supposed to be around 9. That's what we've always heard. 8.5 is the lowest that it's been since Michael Vick, which is pretty incredible. He's got some Whopper Jr. hands. Do you think that's going to actually affect his draft status, or do you think he's still the number one quarterback?
I think it's going to be a case-by-case basis for each team. Every team sees it differently. Some teams are going to see that threshold and think, oh, we don't want to take a bet on that. Some teams are going to say, we could give a crap, right? Like, no, we know he's a competitor. We know he's got the traits. So I think at the end of the day, it's going to affect it for some teams. Like, let's say 16 teams rule him out, 16 teams don't care. As long as one team doesn't care, that's all it takes for him to stay in the top 20, top 10, right? So I think at the end of the day, someone is going to like him enough to take a chance on him. And I think if you can look past the hand size, if you are willing to look past that, he does have a lot of quality traits, especially the experience, the mental game, able to manipulate safeties and go through progressions and kind of use his eyes. And then athletically too, he tested really well. And I was telling people he's going to test better than people expect, because people kind of call him, he can definitely work in the pocket, but he's pretty evasive too. And he's got that athleticism where he can run, he can, kind of withstand pressure. So I think looking at that, his arm isn't great, but again, I think it's elastic enough where he can generate velocity off script. So for me, if you can look past the hands, there's enough for him to kind of rise to the top in a pretty uncertain quarterback class.
Right. Yeah, and real fast, never ever forget Kenny Pickett's fake slide attempt.
Never forget that.
Never forget that. That was beautiful.
Was Hall of Fame worthy. Sticking with the quarterbacks, a guy that was kind of on the fringe of everybody's top 5 was Desmond Ritter. And it seems like once people saw him run that 4.5 40 last night, it's like, it seems like everyone kind of like opened their eyes, like, oh wow, like Desmond Ritter's kind of like maybe turning into that guy. What was your view on his combine yesterday?
It was one of those things where If you watch the tape, it really shouldn't have been news. I think on the tape, he's an athlete. I mean, we know it. He's really good at running in space, and he's got that speed, and he's got especially the long strides, which can help guys run a little bit faster, cover more ground, and he's pretty explosive too as an athlete. You know, like you don't always see that at the quarterback position, but changing directions and kind of springing out of a stance to evade guys, it definitely shows up. So it wasn't a surprise for me. I kind of expected him to test well. I thought but you know, again, it's good to see. It's good for confirmation to know quantifiably, you know, how good he is as an athlete, and he's very good. I think with Ritter, you know, it's not going to change the discussion because I think it's just a matter of, are you willing to take a chance on him? You know, because I think a lot of the questions with Ritter hasn't really been athletics or physical traits. We know he has a pretty good arm too. The questions have been mechanical. You know, the questions have been poise in the pocket, you know, how quickly the mechanics can crumble, and then how the mental game can kind of crumble off of that, right? So it can be a precipitation effect. So it's one of those things where you got to be willing to take a chance on Ritter. And I think, again, it's kind of like the Pickett. You know, maybe some guys are going to be willing to take it, some guys aren't. But me personally, if I'm looking at it, I'm slowly warming up to him just because I know he's got a great character, a great mind off the field. And he's got that experience. When he is set and when he does go through his mechanics and stays strong, then he's shown that he can process pretty well. There's flashes of that. And as long as he has the capacity, that's all I need to say. If I put him in a good situation, maybe I can get more of that, a little more consistent. It is a little uncertain for me because 4 years into his college career, he never fixed those mechanics. So will he ever do that? We don't know. It can be hard to break those habits, but someone is going to be willing to take a chance on him. So at this point, after seeing him test, I'm pretty confident he goes somewhere around 1.
Yeah, and speaking of taking a chance on somebody, Malik Willis was another quarterback that was at the combine yesterday, and there was a video that surfaced of Malik Willis helping out and handing, I don't know exactly what he was giving, but he helped out a homeless guy, which was awesome to see. But he also did not run or do anything at the What did you think how did he perform at the combine yesterday?
Yeah, I think for Willis, it was another one of those things. Like if he did run, I would have loved to see the time, you know, just because it would have been something crazy. I would have loved to see the testing numbers. But again, we already knew. If you watch this tape, you knew how dynamic he was with the ball. So he really had nothing to prove there. I think for him, you know, just keeping those mechanics sound in those throwing drills, and I think he did that too. You know, for Willis, I don't think there was a lot to win or lose from the combine. I think at this point, you know, the Senior Bowl was a big event to kind of get the momentum going in his favor because those interviews, all the reviews off the field have been positive. Obviously, you saw that video, and going back to interviews at Liberty, you know, he's always been a humble guy, you know, always kind of putting the team first. And I think his mentality is what's going to sell teams on being able to take a chance on him because, again, kind of like Ritter, he has the physical traits. I think Willis, you know, a little shorter, a little denser, which you really like. You kind of like to see that. He's heavier than Ritter at 3 inches shorter, right? So he's got that dense frame. He can withstand contact. I think he's a little more explosive out of stance, so a little more dynamic as a runner. So he can create, and I think that's one thing. You know, people don't really think about this all the time, but, you know, being able to create for yourself as an athlete, as a runner, is a pro-ready trait because it can help you deal with adversity early on. So I think having that in Willis's toolbox, at least early on, can help kind of, you know, support his mental growth. Every quarterback needs to kind of acclimate and get up to speed at the NFL level. So I think that having that just in itself, and then you look at his mentality, you know, he's got the character, you know, and I think that if he's in a better situation, it could start to slow down for him. So I think at this point, he's winning over teams, and it's all about what they can be. And I think Willis could be worth the investment.
Before you go, Reed, one thing I want to ask: who took the biggest leap from that combine last night of the quarterbacks, tight ends, and wide receivers in draft stock?
The biggest leap, if I had to say that, Isaiah Weston, Northern Iowa, is a big one. I think he measured in at like 6'3", 214, so big, burly guy. And then he had a 4.42 40-yard dash, a broad jump over 11 feet, I think. So in that 132-inch range, which was really good. And then he had a 40-inch vertical too. So Isaiah Weston was a guy that if you're talking about biggest leap, you're talking about a guy who no one has heard of, and then he comes out and blows the roof off. And I think he did that. He really put those numbers up, having the size, the explosiveness, the speed. He's a guy who could probably go early day 3 now, or maybe even late day 2. I think he's more of an early to mid day 3 guy with those traits, but you know, teams like to bank on those traitsy guys in that range. So I think he really solidified his stock. Sticking with the wide receivers, Tevin Austin Jr., Notre Dame, was another one who tested really well, has really long arms at 6'2", 200. And he actually tested, you know, not just speed and explosiveness. He has that, but he tested really well in the agility drills too. I think he had a 6.71 3-cone, which is very, very good in the 93rd percentile. So Kevin Austin Jr., Notre Dame. And then one more, Daniel Bellinger out of San Diego State, the tight end. He was like 6'5", 253, had a 4.63 40-yard dash, a 34.5-inch vertical. So he was one of those guys where he was primarily a blocking guy at San Diego State. And you know, you didn't always see the receiving upside, but showing that athleticism that he has the tools to work with, I think Daniel Bellinger really kind of put himself above the pack yesterday. Probably still a day 3 guy, but again, he's got the traits worth banking on. And that's what the combine is for, kind of showing teams that you have that.
Right. And who would have guessed a few years ago, San Diego State putting out some prospects over the last few years. A lot of guys kind of seem to take over at the combine, but let's do a little bit of a projection out of these running backs. This is a very athletic running back class. Who do you think is really going to elevate their stock the most with a good workout today?
Shoot, I mean, that's tough, man, because I think there's a couple guys, especially at the top of the class, you know, Isaiah Spiller, Breece Hall, right, Kenneth Walker. I'm a pretty big fan of all their athletic makeups. I think Breece Hall has pretty good speed, considering, you know, maybe not like a pure 4.4 guy, maybe like a mid 4.4, 4.5, but I do think he has enough speed to stretch the seam. Isaiah Spiller, especially, you know, taking off that weight in his final season, he looked a lot more agile, you know, a lot more brisk with his cuts. And then Kenneth Walker, man, I mean, you're talking about a pure runner. He definitely has to prove himself in the receiving aspect. But I think if you're looking at him as a pure runner, you could say he's the best one in the class. I mean, he's super agile, very explosive coming upfield. So, and weighing in at 210 pounds was big for Walker, because some people were worried that he was going to be a little bit closer to 200, so not quite as big. So, you know, looking at the big 3, I think all 3 of those guys have a chance to really blow the roof off. If I had to go further down, Tyler Beatty is one. He's very explosive, very jittery on tape. And I think, you know, he weighed in a little bit under 200, which I would have liked him to hit that 200 mark. But again, he's like 5'8", so he's pretty dense even for being a 5'8" guy. And I think he's going to be very explosive. So Tyler Beatty's one. There's a couple more. I think it's a pretty strong running back class overall. I'm interested to see Brian Robinson, Damian Pierce, Hassan Haskins, how those guys test, because I think if you're looking for a guy who can potentially be a really dependable workhorse or stable back and eventually kind of grow into an increased role, you know, those are a few guys in the middle rounds who could really kind of develop into that. So a lot of interesting guys. I think if you're looking for, you know, whether you're looking for a starter in the middle rounds or maybe a late round flyer who can maybe develop into something more, there's a lot of different flavors here.
Right. Yeah, that number 1 running back spot still up for grabs. Every analyst seems to differentiate on the order of the top 3, but they all pretty much have the same.
I've differentiated 3 times the past 3 days, man. I'm flip-flopping all the time on that stuff.
It's all about what flavor you like, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, and jumping back to the quarterbacks, everyone knows like the big guys, the big name guys. Was there a guy that, well, there's a guy that nobody really knows that stood out to you that kind of maybe put himself on the map quarterback wise? And also, was there a guy that you expected to come in and maybe test a little bit better? Didn't, I guess, I don't want to say live up to expectations, but is there a guy that you saw out of that quarterback group or any of the groupings that you thought would have tested a little bit better come yesterday?
I think I'll start with the quarterbacks. I think guys who people really don't know who they are. And I'll reiterate with this. I'll preface with this. I don't think there's like a Dak Prescott or in this class. I don't think there's a guy who goes in the middle of the late rounds who ends up being a starter. I don't think it quite has that depth. But EJ Perry from Brown was a guy. He's a fun player, just fun to know who he is, because he was at Brown and he was by far the best player on their team. Their football program was pretty bad, but he was carrying them every week. And, you know, he's got athleticism, man. I think he had like a 34-inch vertical, had a 4.6 or 4.7 40. So he's pretty athletic. He's got that mobility. And he's a guy who could stick around in a camp and just use that playmaking ability on his legs to kind of buoy him into maybe being a 3rd quarterback for a team year in and year out, something like that. I think Jack Cohn from Notre Dame as well. He tested a little bit better than I expected. From Wisconsin, he was originally, and then he transferred to Notre Dame, but he's got some toughness. He's got some, you know, I think he had a 33-inch vert, which was the same as Treylon Burks, ironically. But, you know, Jack Cohn is one of those guys who he's got the toughness, the poise. I mean, you look at him in the pocket, very good at, you know, just standing in and kind of making his reads. Doesn't have any high-end traits or anything. I don't think he's going to be any more of a backup. But, you know, sometimes that's what you're looking for. Sometimes you're looking for a backup. So I think, you know, just having that could kind of solidify his stock as a, you know, mid to late day 3 guy who has some security long term. Going to a guy who disappointed a little bit, I think David Bell is one. Yeah. I was kind of worried. You know, people were kind of, you know, celebrating that he weighed in at 210 or 212. I was a little worried when I saw that, because it's like, well, he's got extra poundage now, so how is he going to test? And then we saw him get like a 4.65 and like a really pretty low explosiveness numbers. So I was never a big fan of the athleticism on tape for him. I love the, the ability to catch, the contested catch ability. But, having a guy who's kind of lacking athletically, that's not a guy that I really am eager to invest in in the early rounds. So David Bell was one, and then Treylon Burks was, you could say Treylon Burks was another. I think, looking back on it, I think he tested pretty solidly for his size, being a guy who's 6'2", 225. So I'm not going to say that he was a bad, some people expected more than a 33-inch vertical, but he did have a 122-inch broad, which is pretty good. And then obviously the 4.5 at his size, it's more than enough. So those were a couple, but overall the wide receiver group was, and even the tight end group was very solid all around. There were a lot of good testers.
Right. Yeah. Real fast. David Bell almost kind of reminds you of a Kelvin Harmon situation where when they were coming out, they're both all-stars. They're go-to wide receivers. They didn't test too well. They're thicker. They can both go out and grab the ball. They're very good at contested catches. And so I hope that doesn't happen to him because that guy has so much more talent than to be a 6th-round pick,
Yeah, I think he settles, if I had to guess, I'd say he settles out as maybe a late 3rd, early 4th, because I do think there's enough instincts at the catch point and he can separate a little bit. It's just the upside, man. I was always skeptical of it, and you don't want to just like close the door on a guy based off a few numbers, but it does kind of make the feeling even deeper where it's like, I'm not sure I'd invest in this guy. Someone will, but it makes me hesitant for sure.
Absolutely. And my comp for Treylon Burks was Anquan Bolden, who also did not test very well, but ended up being a very productive wide receiver in the NFL. Mm-hmm. But to wrap this up, Ian, my last question for you. Right now, as we're talking, it's the offensive line, the running backs at the combine. Yesterday was tight ends, quarterbacks, and wide receivers. Tomorrow is defensive line and linebackers, and then finishing up on Sunday with the DBs. Linebacker is a big need for Washington here. It might be a little bit of a thorn to talk about with other fans because either they acknowledge it or don't. But who are some linebackers in this combine that you're really looking forward to that could help Washington in later rounds?
I think, if you're going later rounds, there's a lot of guys for sure. There's a lot of names to look at. I think for Washington, if I had to guess, man, Brian Asamoah is one guy. Now he might not be a later round guy. I think at the later rounds, you're kind of stretching to see if you can get an impact player. I think if I had to pick a range to attack, if I'm Washington, if you do want to go that route, day 2, if you can try and get one there. And I think, Brian Asamoah is one. He was originally an outside. I had the chance to interview him a couple weeks ago. Very bright guy, a very energetic guy, and he's confident too, ambitious. He's really a fun competitor, but you see him on tape, explosive, tons of range, sideline to sideline, a little undersized, but again, he started off as an outside linebacker and, kind of transitioned a little late to Mike inside linebacker. And this past year was very confident in it. It was his best year yet. I think you put him in that role. He's got the range. He's got the physicality. And on top of that too, he's a pretty good communicator. And you can tell he knows the game. Talking to him, he knows that situational football, how to kind of identify the sets from offensive linemen to get a key on what the play is. So just having that, I was really impressed interviewing him. So he's a guy who's going to test, I think, pretty well and has the mental traits. Chad Muma, Wyoming, again, he might be more of a 2nd-round guy, so it might be a little tough, but he's another one who's got the size, the explosiveness, and very combative in run defense, and again has the instincts and pass coverage as well. So those are a couple ones. I think, moving down the line, there's a few others. Terrell Bernard, if you're looking for a coverage guy, he might be more of a 4th-round guy, but there are a few names to know in this linebacker class. It all depends on what you're looking for, but if you're Washington, you're probably looking for a Mike, so it definitely kind of narrows your options a bit.
Yeah, and one player that Washington met with at the combine was Troy Anderson. What did you think of his play?
Yeah, he's an interesting one. He's like 6'4", 235, something like that. Super versatile. A great guy. Great guy. I should lead off with that. He's a very high character guy. You talk to him, he's very humble. Coming from Montana State, yeah, but he's an athlete for sure. Explosive, rangy. He's versatile. He can go to outside linebacker. He can cover in an overhang slot, which he did a lot. He's pretty fluid for his size. I like him a lot. I'm excited to see how he tests. I'm not sure how he fits as a Mike early on, though. I think he's more of that run and chase guy who you move around as a chess piece. So I'm not sure if he'd fit what exactly Washington needs. But if you want to get him in that room, he's a talented guy, and maybe he has the mental makeup. I know he's a former quarterback, so he's got that in him. Although he's more of a running quarterback, he had like a ton of running stats. But he's a fun player. The upside's there, and if you're Washington, and if you decide that he has the mental makeup to potentially be a Mike, then I'm not going to get in your way because the traits are there in spades.
Yeah, I was very impressed with how limited amount of experience he has as a linebacker, but he has natural instincts at run gaps and closing lanes and stuff. I thought that was incredible to watch.
Yeah.
But Ian,
and once he sees it, he attacks it too. He comes
Absolutely.
downhill really fast.
He does, and he hits hard too. Ian, I can't thank you enough for coming on here, spending some time to be able to talk about the combine, these draft prospects, and give us your tidbit. Everyone around Washington Twitter knows how invaluable you are in your opinion. Ian, real quick, before you get out of here and go enjoy your great Friday night, you want to plug your social media handle, just in case anybody watching doesn't follow you already.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So you can follow me at Ian_Cummings_9. Got a bunch of tweets and content coming out for draft season. And then Pro Football Network is at PFN365.
Of course. Thank you so much, Ian. Thank you for joining us again. I'll talk to you very, very soon, brother. Enjoy your Friday.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Have a good night, guys.
All right, Ian.
Take it easy.
Man, that's awesome.
Yes, sir. Info.
Yeah.
Love it.
Always fantastic.
That stopwatch catastrophe with the combine. So I didn't know this until Reed, you had said something earlier today in our group chat, but apparently there was a stopwatch malfunction where like Chris Olave ran like a 4.26 and ended up getting adjusted to like a
4.39.
Yeah, how does that happen?
I don't know. It had to be recalibrated or something. Same with obviously Tyquan Thompson from Baylor, Tyquan Thornton. He ran everybody thought he broke the record. And the whole time I was watching it, I was like, of course I was fast, but I was like, that didn't look like Justin Ross fast or John Ross fast when he did it. And lo and behold, it was really a 4.28. So that would be why it didn't look as fast, you know?
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that the Raiders are going to be taking Thornton. I'm really happy for him that he ran the 4.28. It makes a lot of sense.
But how bad does that suck for Olave? Olave, like, he ran that and everybody was like, dude, 4.26 for him. He was already like, he's going to go top 15. Then it's like, oh, you only ran a 4.39. Sorry. Back to the end of the round one for you.
Real quick, as we're recording this, Ian Rappaport just tweeted, Washington has called essentially everywhere about finding a quarterback. Their call to the Seahawks shows a commitment to swinging big. They went 7-10 last year with a solid backup. A surefire starter changes everything for a team ready to compete. Am I missing something?
Hasn't that been news for a little bit?
I was gonna say.
Yeah, but I don't know why he's saying it now. But you obviously know that at the combine, things are moving and things are moving fast, especially between teams. This is when they can actually talk to one another and be able to pick their minds, right? But before we get any further, let's go over our fan questions real fast. And the first one is from the Colonel, our most consistent and committed, productive contributor to this show. His question is, I'll go to you, Reed, with this one first. As I've thought from the beginning, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, and Deshaun Watson won't be available. Where are you guys leaning? Trubisky, Winston, followed by Desmond Ritter or Carson Strong as our second pick? Please tell me you guys don't think we're going to trade for Jimmy G, especially now he's getting another surgery.
No, I don't think that we're going to trade for Jimmy G. Thank God. You know, I don't think any of those quarterbacks are worth anybody. Him, Kirk Cousins, that kind of ballpark. I just don't think anybody's worth it. I like, you don't want to give up picks for somebody like that. But I do think, obviously, I think that they're still going to attempt to swing big. I mean, look, Pete Carroll said that they have no intention of trading Russell Wilson. That doesn't mean that they won't eventually have intention. If they're offered the right package. Now, will that be offered? I doubt it, but so I really do think that they are going to go vet, but I still think that they're going to go quarterback early. Like if they get somebody who's questionable, like say a Mitch Trubisky, and they have the opportunity to get a Malik Willis, will that happen? I doubt it, but I really think that Ron Rivera, after meeting with these quarterbacks, you could see the excitement on Rivera's face when he met with Malik Willis. He talked about him, and I really think that that's a very real possibility. And honestly, I'm okay with that, with going the rookie route, just because I mean, I know this is a weak quarterback class, but it's still, I mean, all it takes is one guy in the right system to become the guy. So I'm excited for it.
So for clarification on Ian Rappaport's tweet that I just read, this is the original tweet. How serious are the Commanders in their search for a quarterback? Sources say they made a strong offer to the Seahawks on Russell Wilson. It didn't go anywhere. But a sign Washington is ready to deal. And given what they have on their roster, they may be a quarterback away. So that makes a lot more sense as to why he's bringing that up.
Right. That second tweet you said, I was like, yeah, everyone.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, that's been reported for weeks now. Yeah, thanks, Rappaport.
Colonel, I do think I like Trubisky. I've been warming up to, but I still would rather Jameis Winston. But in my opinion, if they go get one of these quarterbacks in free agency, I don't think they'll be spending the first rounder on a quarterback. Ron Rivera has said multiple times in interviews that if they're drafting a rookie quarterback, it's going to be because he's starting. They're not drafting one just to sit. If they get one, they're going to start him. And so
if they take one early, right? That's
so,
what you mean. Like,
Yeah. So if they go and get Jameis Winston, I don't see them being able to follow that up with a draft pick at quarterback. I think they're going to keep Taylor as the backup quarterback in that breath. So, but I am thinking that it is going to go down with rookie quarterback. I have a feeling with it, the way that Ron Rivera talked in his quotes all week long, you can kind of pick little tells that he has here and there. So I do think that the rookie quarterbacks, as much as I have crapped on this class, I do think that they are very, very intrigued by it, unless something miraculous happens with Deshaun Watson, which I highly, highly doubt.
Yeah, I definitely think that. Yeah, I honestly, I think if they're gonna get a vet, it would probably end up being one of the two between Winston or Mitch Trubisky. But obviously, Jameis Winston could easily just re-sign with I was almost said St. Louis, with New Orleans, and Mitch Trubisky is gonna have suitors, maybe the Steelers, which was honestly is probably a better situation than coming here for him at least, or he's gonna have other suitors as well. So I definitely think they're gonna go the rookie route, and I'm with you guys. Like you said, Ron already said that if he drafts a guy early, they're going to be there to start. Just like when he was with Carolina, he had Cam come in, start from day one. So I definitely think they go either the Kenny Pickett, somewhere around that kind of route as far as a rookie quarterback goes. But if they are going to bring in a vet, I wouldn't be mad at that, because then you can go playmaker at 11, maybe a Treylon Burks or whatever wide receivers there that you really, really love. And then you can get the quarterback maybe the second round, like a Desmond Ritter or something like that. So at the end of the day, whatever route they go, I just want everyone to be in sync. That's all I really care about this point.
I don't think Desmond Ritter is making it to the second round anymore. I think if Pittsburgh is sitting there at 22, I think they pull the trigger on Desmond Ritter immediately. Yeah. I think he fits
I don't know.
Exactly
I was reading something where if Pittsburgh's going to draft a rookie quarterback, the only rookie quarterback they're going to be interested in is trading up to get Malik Willis.
Oh, I even heard Kenny Pickett because of Pitt, the connection there, and that would make a lot of sense for them.
The thing about Ritter, I think NFL teams are probably higher on Ritter than a lot of the media is. Like, for a long time, you saw him. Some people didn't even have him ranked in the top 5 of their quarterbacks. But getting a quarterback who's that experienced, who has those traits, and whose real big issues are easily not easily, but I mean they're correctable. I think that within this week quarterback class, I don't think Ritter will end up getting to round 2.
Yeah, and I know that everyone keeps talking about Ritter and how his mechanics did not change throughout his career. I definitely do question the college coaching and being able to get quarterbacks ready for the NFL. This has been a common theme. Even Pat Mahomes had to be adjusted when he came to the NFL coming from college. It's just something it's true and it happens, and there's nothing bad about it. But the next question from the Colonel is, despite street smarts, Rico, that's funny, thinking Malik Willis knocked his interviews out of the park, he said he watched him answer questions, and it scared him a little bit. Not that he's immature like Dwayne Haskins, but he's seemingly situational unaware at times. And it's not, and he didn't come across as the other prospects did in what he was able to watch. So his question is, Hall, does his elite talent overcome maturity questions, especially after the Haskins debacle?
Who was this? I couldn't hear in the beginning. Malik Willis?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from everything that I've read and seen and whatnot, people talk about him, he seems like a pretty humble kid. Not really like the cocky type, or a little bit of cockiness, but still like humble and knowing that like he has more to learn. He definitely has more to grow, and I definitely think his talent would definitely supersede his immaturity things. But at the end of the day, like I said, I don't think that everyone that has pretty much talked to him and whatnot has pretty much said that he's a pretty mature guy. He's a humble guy. He's willing to learn. And at the end of the day, that's all you can really ask for out of your rookie quarterback coming into the NFL.
Yeah, I don't think the talent probably does outweigh the maturity. We've seen that time and time again with the NFL. We've seen it with Kareem Hunt. We've seen it Tyreek Hill. Talent oversees it all. And the way that ball was spinning out of Malik Willis's hands last night at the Combine, I think is making a lot of teams go crazy over him with possibly being able to acquire him. I do think he's going to be in the first round, but I don't think that – I understand what you're saying, because it's not like Malik Willis came across as a Haskins or any sort of – obviously he's got his wits about him. He's there. It's just little questions here and there. You're like, head scratching, right? You're like, why did he say that? And I do understand what you're saying, but look, my guy's Desmond Ritter. When you looked at him in the interviews, he looked like he just got out of the hotel room, didn't do anything to his hair, just showed up, and that's my kind of guy. He's a hard hat type of dude. So Desmond Ritter is my homie.
I will say though, to his answers, like I just feel like since he went to Liberty, like you really think Hugh Freeze and Liberty people are really, there's not really like a lot of PR, a lot of press around him being at Liberty. So I don't think he really had that media savvy type training that you're gonna obviously get once you join the NFL.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day,
that's a good point.
Some of his responses were kind of like head scratching, like the one where you were talking about where he said he didn't like football until he got good at it. But at the end of the day, he's just being him. And I don't want somebody that's going to come up there and give you like a robotic, like already prepared statement. If he wants to, that's how he feels at the time. That's how he feels. And I can kind of respect that.
Yeah, that was the other thing with him at the Senior Bowl that kind of came out. They were talking about, they're like, Malik Willis, nobody's ever going to say he's not his own person. They had that interview of him on the sidelines, and he was just relaxed, calm. You don't want your quarterback to be out there. Like so many quarterbacks do that where they're just super robotic almost in their answers, and it just gets frustrating. Kirk was like that, you know?
Yeah.
It's just like, get over it.
Yeah, Kirk was like that, dude. And it's really annoying when you get that because you're like, dude, just talk to me. You know?
Speaking of Kirk and how white he is, I look like I'm like deathly ill right now or pale or something. I'm blending in with the stuff behind me. I look like Nosferatu.
Right.
God,
so
get that checked.
Our next question is from our
Maybe
guy.
I'm the ghost.
Our guy. Next question is from Michael Haas on Twitter. And so what he has is he has 4 questions in total. So what he has a question slotted for each one of us specifically. So the first one I'll go to is Hall's. And his question is to you, Hall. If Aaron Rodgers, this is a big if Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, and Watson are off the table, what percentage would you say Washington will go get a free agent quarterback and a round 1 quarterback?
Free agent and round 1, I would say, unless someone like Malik Willis just randomly happens to somehow slide to 11, which is obviously probably not going to happen at this point. I'd say that the chances of them going free agent and a rookie quarterback in round 1 is probably 10 to 15%, just because any free agents that they bring in for the most part, unless it's Teddy Bridgewater or Tyrod Taylor, which in that case, why would you even do that in the first place?
Right.
But yeah, any free agent that they bring in is probably going to be, they're looking at him as maybe their 1, maybe 2-year starter. And while their playoff, the Super Bowl window is opened up with all these younger guys on their roster. But yeah, I can see a 10 to 15% at the most that they go free agent and then round 1 quarterback.
And then that's a great answer. And Reed, your question is, would an Amari Cooper acquisition influence a Landon Collins restructure of his contract? And if you don't know yet, which I'm sure you do, Amari Cooper is expected to be released from the Cowboys as they are currently trying to get a contract done with Michael Gallup, their wide receiver. And I think Amari Cooper is scheduled to make $20 million this year, and so they're scrapping him.
Who saw that coming, by the way?
Yeah.
So the question was, would an Amari Cooper coming here basically make Landon Collins want to restructure his deal? I could see that. I mean, I think Landon Collins wants to be here. All that stuff that was made about Landon Collins not wanting to play linebacker and he wants to be considered a safety, I think it kind of died down once he saw his role in this defense. Just don't tell him he's a linebacker, and I think he'll be fine. No, but I would imagine so. I don't know if he might be the type of dude. I do think Landon Collins is a good guy. I don't want to say anything bad about him, but I do think he may be the guy who would probably take a pay cut. I mean, I don't want to say he wouldn't. Would it be that big? Probably not. But I do think that if he has the opportunity to post somebody like Amari Cooper, finally help out his boy Terry McLaurin and whoever the quarterback is and make this offense legit, I think he would. I would imagine. I like to think he's the kind of guy who would be like, yeah, I'll do that. Okay, cool. I'll take a few mil off for that, or a mil or two off. So I just like, that's just the homer in me, though. I want to say yes.
Unless your name is Tom Brady, I ain't never seen a player giving anybody a home.
Players have done that. Players have done that a few times.
Yeah,
they restructure their contracts all the time. But yeah,
it only happens to the good teams. Yeah.
But then again, Brady's wife is the bread maker in that family, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah.
And then Michael's question to me was, did Desmond Ritter boost himself into the first round? You already know the answer to that question, Michael. Running a 4.5 with throwing the ball as well as he did, having a 36-inch vertical, which I think Andrew Luck was another one who had that kind of vertical, which was fantastic. He had a good broad jump as well. I do think he is a first-round quarterback at this point, because when I talked about in early January that Desmond Ritter, which got me killed on Twitter, checked all the boxes, what I meant was he's an athlete. He can escape by the pocket. He's very fast. He can run away from defenders, but he also predominantly works in the pocket, keeps his eyes downfield, is able to diagnose plays and hit his checkdowns, but he's also tall. He's 6'4", thin build kind of, but he has good ways to be inside the pocket. Without a doubt, with him running a 4.5 and then a 4.49 after that in the 40, I definitely think he's in the round one discussion at this point, especially with him being the best quarterback at the Senior Bowl. He has consistently shown that he is the better one. Every time they have a ball in their hands and there are other quarterbacks around, he's the one that's looking the best at it. So, yes, he definitely did boost himself into the first round. Like I said, I think Pittsburgh is perfect place for Desmond Ritter. I would love for Desmond Ritter here in Washington. I just don't know if 11th overall that's what they're going to do, because sitting at 22, they have the running game, they have the talent at wide receiver, they have the defense to be able to help a rookie quarterback, and just like they did with Big Ben, and I could really see them doing that, and Desmond Ritter would do so great in that offense.
You know what they should do, now that I just thought about it? Malik Willis, or as the Steelers supposedly want Malik Willis so bad, they can trade up to 11, and then they can get Malik Willis. We can trade back to their spot. We get Desmond Ritter at their spot.
Right. It's a win-win. And real fast, Desmond Ritter, his body, no, they're different quarterbacks in terms of their accuracy, but his body type and his speed and just what he could possibly become if he works on his mechanics, and which could translate to better accuracy. Ryan Tannehill, they just have very similar bodies almost. They're both mature coming into the league. They're both hot.
I think he said his player comp was a mixture of Watson and Tannehill at the same time.
He did.
He
did say
for
that.
Sure. Yeah, you guys are welcome for
that. And now Michael's last question to us, which is a group question. So, Reed, I'll go to you first. With so many day 2 stud wide receivers and DBs available, is quarterback at 11 a lock for Washington?
No, I don't think it's a lock, just in case they could go the free agency route. And like we've said, if they go the free agency route, I don't think that they'll take a quarterback in round 1. But I do think that Ron is leaning towards, if he doesn't get one of these vet guys, he is going to go quarterback at 11. So, yeah, I guess it's getting there. They might have to trade up if they want Willis. I mean, that he's the hot name right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not sure if it's a lock, Michael, but kind of how I view it is Rivera going into free agency as almost like that's the start, right? And then it's like the trade aspect. Okay, if we can't get a trade, let's then move down to free agency. If our top free agents are gone, now let's move to the draft and let's see which best quarterback we can select at that point. And if it does end up them falling back to the draft, I definitely do think 11 could be a lock. Unless there's some miracle and they have a bank and they can certify that quarterback will be there in the second round. And I highly doubt he will, just based on the measurables and everything like that. And what I mean by that is taking a wide receiver at 11 or a cornerback like Ahmad Gardner and then getting a quarterback in the second round. But anybody that's worth a dang, I don't think is going to be there in that second. What do you think, Hall?
Yeah, I don't think it's a lock either. I think if they can't land Trubisky or Jameis, I think that their option or plan B would probably be to go the draft route, which in that case, maybe Pickett or maybe Willis slides in them at 11. But to say it's a lock, I would say it's not anywhere close to a lock. And to prove that, honestly, Ron Rivera came out over the weekend or a couple of days ago and said that pretty much, to paraphrase, he said this team needs a veteran right now. So I've been saying from the get-go, ever since we hired Ron, that I don't think he wants to go the rookie route. I think he wants a veteran guy to kind of just step in and take this team to the next level once it gets built up. We're at the built-up stage. He wants a guy to jump in right now, take him to the next level. So I definitely think that veteran is 1A, 1 and 1A, and the draft is plan B.
I got you. Now, the next question is from Paul Murphy in Scotland. Oi! Which quarterbacks and wide receivers have impressed you the most at the Combine Hall? Keep it small, short.
Which positions?
Quarterback and wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the ones that everyone's already talked about. Like Watson, out of North Dakota State. Quarterback-wise, obviously Ritter. Everyone's been talking about Ritter. I mean, yeah, those are pretty much my two standout guys that I pretty much already locked onto anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, you already know Desmond Ritter obviously blew the doors off of the Combine, I thought, did really, really well. He just doesn't have the pizzazz about him where, like, it really does bring up a lot of excitement. Like Malik Willis, I think naturally just has that about him. I said that yesterday. But wide receivers, I thought Sky Moore tested out really well. I think he ran a 4.39, if I'm not
I
mistaken.
think he got changed to a 4-4-1.
4-4-1, but Sky Moore is another guy that I really, really like. And then Treylon Burks running the 4-5. I know the vert wasn't really there, but the fact that him being 6'3", 225, and being able to run that 4-5, given his athletic ability, his hands and everything, I think it was very impressive. What about you, Reed? Was there anybody different?
Yeah. Real fast, I just want to comment on Treylon Burks. It's weird that you heard all offseason about his hand size being like 11 inches. He came in with his hands measured under 10 inches. So it was 9
Really?
something. It was just like, what an odd lie by them. I don't like
did he
I
wear
see
big
adding
gloves?
an inch, right? But so you guys pretty much hit the quarterbacks. It was, I mean, obviously Desmond Ritter, like you said, Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett, even though, I mean, he's got his tiny hands. But wide receiver, I'll throw another one out there who I was super impressed with. Alec Pierce, the wide receiver from Cincinnati, Desmond Ritter's teammate, 6'3". He used to play linebacker. He graduated in 3.5 years from college, and on top of that, he just ran a 4.33 at 6'3", 208, 6'3", 210, something like that. And that speed doesn't really show up on game film. Like, I didn't see him look that fast, but hey, he ran a 4.33, and that was after the stopwatch adjustment.
Right. And thank you, Paul. That was a great question, sir. Next question is from Ryan R. Brat10 on Twitter. Do you believe Washington takes a running back during the draft? And I'd say, who do you hope they take in what round? He said, thanks. Love the show. Appreciate you, Ryan. Reed, what do you think?
I'm going to go with a guy who I've been banging on his drum for a while, Tyler Goodson out of Iowa, probably round 6, I would say, at 188. That's where we're picking this draft, right? Yeah.
Sure.
I just think he's a good running back. He's good all around. He's been productive in college. He's got size. He's got speed. He's got vision. I'm surprised that I don't know exactly what it is that's making teams. I guess he's just another guy who's been good, but he's somebody who can do it all, and I really like Tyler Goodson.
Yeah, I've been really intrigued by James Cook, obviously Devin Cook's brother. You know, the bloodline is straight there. But that's the name I'm really looking at, and that's more like 3rd or 4th round. The only reason I say that is because if I'm going to draft a running back, this has to be a guy that can be the number 1 overall running back for your team. You know, you're not just a speedster or blocking back. You got to be able to take the number 1 carries and carry the game with you. And that's what I'm most looking forward to. And James Cook has proven that thus far. And I do think that he could be a backup that could come in at any time and be able to, in emergency situations, and take the ball and be able to do everything with it. What do you think, Hall?
I don't think they're going to draft a running back. I think they might look at like a undrafted free agent type of guy and then bring him in after the draft. But I think that if they can get, obviously they want to get J.D. McKissick re-signed, but I think that they have faith in J.D. McKissick and Patterson from Buffalo, the rookie last year.
Yeah,
I almost forgot his name. I think that they have faith in McKissick and Patterson being able to step in, maybe like if AG happens to have a toe injury again or some type of injury. I think that they think McKissick, if they can re-sign him, and Patterson can kind of fill that void in the meanwhile. So I don't think they're going to draft one, but undrafted free agent definitely seems like maybe a route that might go.
I like that a lot. I do. But now let's move on to our next question. This is from Scott Hartley in the UK.
Oi.
Reed, which superstar first-round prospect will fall the most?
Ooh. So this is tough, and this might not be exactly popular, but I've been saying this for the last few weeks. I think Derek Stingley is going to fall a little bit. I know he's been hyped up since he was a freshman. He had a fantastic freshman season. He's got all the athletic traits you could look for. He's going to test really well. He's going to run in the low 4.3s. He's got size. But if you look at his tape the last couple of years and his injury history, it doesn't really match up. And I think if you look at somebody like Sauce Gardner, his tape is just better, and he's got size too, and he's going to test decently. I just think the media and fans are higher on him because he's a huge name than some NFL teams will be. And he's still going to go high. I mean, he'll still probably go top 15, but I could see him maybe going to a team like the Ravens or something at what is that, 14, pick 15? Yeah, that's right. Shut up, dogs. So I think Derek Stingley's a superstar who's going to fall.
Derek Stingley's a really good one. I like that.
Yeah, no, I know.
Who could I see fall like really far? I think like Nakobe Dean, given his size. I know that how well he did, but I could see him possibly falling down that first round, being end of the first kind of thing, just given with how much talent is there in the first round, like we've talked about with wide receivers and corners, and obviously with offensive line and defensive line. It's going to be really funny to see how that first round shakes out. So if I would pick one, I would say Nakobe Dean would be a very surprising first round star player to fall. What about you, Hall?
Oh, man. Y'all took 2 I was going to take. So I don't
Oh, really?
Man, I don't have a third one off the top of my
brutal.
head, honestly.
Yeah.
You're on the spot here, bro.
Yeah.
I'll go I'll go one of these top wide receivers. I can't think of one on the top of my head.
Carlton
right now,
Dees.
Yeah. I can see Dees. Yeah, I'll go Chris Olave. I think he's gonna drop maybe to like the back end of the first round. I know it's not a real name, but
I know. I got you. I just wanted you to say who so I could say it. But obviously you didn't fall for it. You think Chris Olave even after his 40?
Yeah, I just think that there's so many top wide receivers like Garrett Wilson, who's a better route runner than him and a little bit more polished, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
I just think that with the obviously
and
also
who ended up running a faster 40 anyway, Garrett Wilson. Like saw that 4.26.
But also if you look at the free agent market and like guys are going to get traded or released away like Calvin Ridley or Amari Cooper, I feel like they're going to fill the voids of a lot of these teams that are wide receiver needy, pushing some of these guys down the board.
All right, that makes
another
sense.
one real fast. I could see Tyler Lindbaum falling a little bit just because the importance of the center position not being as good as he is. I mean, he's a first round top 5 talent in this entire draft, but just based off of centers and who needs him right now, I could see him going a little lower than he should.
Also, Dixon might slide too.
So, did you know Ligma Dixon?
I almost asked.
I was like, yes,
I saw it.
yes.
I was like, oh no, don't do it. The last question that we have is from the Commanders call. Great dude. He DM'd me on Twitter. He says, with the combine here and free agency right around the corner, what must the Commanders do this offseason to give you confidence that we will be improved? I see a lot of fans use the term move the needle. What does the team have to do to move the needle for you? He says, again, you guys are the best. Really enjoy the podcast. Thank you, Commanders Call. You're awesome, brother. Yeah. What do you think, Reed?
Bro?
I mean, the one thing that we're all would imagine they're going to say to move the needle, I mean, they got to make a splash at quarterback, whether that is one of these veterans that it looks unlikely they're going to get, or bringing in somebody electric like Malik Willis that's really going to get this fan base excited again. I think those are really the only two things that'll be like, okay, these guys are committed. But if they're going to be super smart about it, they would bring in another receiver. They'd bring in somebody in free agency, and then maybe a vet, maybe somebody just to kind of hold down the fort for a year, and then they would go after a quarterback next year when the class is better. But that doesn't work like that. So they're going to have to bring in a quarterback this offseason. It is what it is.
Look, and I know everyone and their mother is going to say quarterback. Obviously, that's going to what move the needle for the most people. But I will say the thing that will move the needle the most for me that give me confidence that they are improved, it's extending Terry McLaurin. And I know that obviously weighs heavily with what they do at quarterback. But I'm concerned that Terry won't be happy with what they do at quarterback, and we'll be testing free agency. And the one guy who has been a superstar for this team, carried this team, has worked his butt off, and I'm petrified of the fact that dude walking for nothing. And I want Terry to retire a Washington Commander, and I really hope that's the case and that the brass feels the same way. So for me, it's re-signing Terry to an extension, and that way I know this team is legit, and they are really going to be improved this season and then in the future as well. Because if Terry leaves, I think we're taking 2 or 3 steps backwards. What do you think, Hall?
Yeah, and even more scary is if they can't get a long-term deal done, or maybe, like you said, he's kind of unsure about the quarterback situation, so he doesn't want to commit long-term, as if they have to franchise tag him, because we all know once you franchise tag someone, they're pretty much 1 foot out the door as it is already. So definitely wouldn't be good. But, yeah, obviously the obvious answer is, and you just already read the tweet, that they're trying to make a big splash with a guy like Russell Wilson. So quarterback would be the obvious answer. But for me personally, what would move the needle for me would be if they can somehow add at least 1 veteran playmaker to this offense and 1 rookie playmaker to this offense that can come in and contribute right away. That would move the needle for me personally, because, I mean, when's the last time this team has had 2 to 3 legit wide receivers? You got to go back to like Pierre and Deshaun Jackson. So it's been a while, and I think that we need to definitely get back to that, especially in the offensive league.
3 good receivers. You got to go back farther than that. You got to go back to Gary Clunk, Art Monk, and these guys. I don't know
what was happening to you.
I think I had a stroke right there. I think that's what that was, or an aneurysm. Either way, it's not healthy.
It happens all the time. The ghost has infected you, Reed. It's here.
Yeah, no, it's doing something. At first, I thought it was cool, but now I'm not so sure.
Yeah, it's like trying to lock you into rooms and stuff. So can you explain to everyone watching what happened to you today?
So yeah, me and Lindsay and James moved into a new apartment early December. And since then, a few weird things had happened. Like one time, but it was always good. Like one time there was something in the kitchen. One of James's toys that was up there for like a couple weeks flew off of the top shelf just randomly. Nobody was in there, but it brought my attention because it landed over in a direction where the stove had been on for a few hours that I had accidentally left on. I was like, oh, that's cool. Another time I heard a knock on the door, turned around, looked over. Our Christmas tree was by the door. The Christmas tree was falling down. And because James was pulling it down, I was like, damn, all right, cool. If we have a ghost, it's cool. It's helping us out. All of a sudden, a few nights ago, there was a woman whispering. I swear, I just heard a random whisper. I couldn't tell what it was. I was at night, and I was like, "That's weird." Called Lindsay. She was like, "No idea." Just said, "Let's maybe get everybody out of the room." And I was like, "Okay, valid point." Today, before I'm getting set up for the podcast, I closed the door because James likes to just go in and out of the rooms. And I go back into my room, and it's just locked from the inside. I'm like, "That's weird." I have to break in. We never lock the doors anywhere. Then James is freaking out, and I'm like, what's wrong? I go out there and Lindsay's like, he doesn't have his passy. And I'm like, well, where is it? And she's like, it's in the bathroom. I'm like, then go get it. And she's like, I can't, the door's locked. And I was like, what? And she was like, I closed the door and it's just randomly locked. I was like, so now I just think it's a demon probably baiting me in. Probably shouldn't say that, but I know who you are. And I've seen Zach Bagans and Ghost Adventures a lot. So I know what to do.
Yeah, the Colonel at his place has these red vases that they sit on a shelf, and he has like all these different types of vases, all different colors, but the red ones always move like closer to the middle of the room and like to the point where they will fall off the ledge. One has actually fallen and broken. So, and they're only the red ones. And so for some reason he has to continuously, like probably once a month, go and push them back. And so it's always a weird kind of thing we talk about. But speaking of ghosts, RG3 canceled his book, Surviving Washington. How surprised are you, Reed?
That RG3 didn't live up to expectations. I'm not surprised at all. RG3 didn't do what he was supposed to do. Shocker.
Oh man, you're ridiculous. No, I thought it was very funny. I mean, we kind of already knew this. I've talked about with my source, a well-placed source. He's very high up in the organization. He's like best friends with Dan, essentially, and Jason. Basically, that this was never going to happen based on what was inside of that book. And what he was trying to do was just trying to bring attention to himself. And we kind of knew that. It's unfortunate that people got their hopes up and thinking that RG3 was going to come through for them. But guess what? That now you know what it was like to be a Washington fan back in 2013, 14, and 15. Sorry, bud. You surprised, Hall?
No, I mean, not at all. When I first heard the book, I mean, I was kind of just same as you. I was just like, wait. So if you knew about something that was going on, why are you waiting 10 years later to say something? Pretty sure you just made yourself an accessory. So it's probably not a good look for you.
And right.
So if that's the case, I already knew it wasn't coming out, but it just confirmed that, like you guys said, he's just trying to put the spotlight on himself. He was at the combine today, throwing around passes, trying to look all like perfect form. And I saw another tweet that said he was walking around in his combine gear from 2012.
Oh no, he was. No way.
That has I wouldn't doubt it though, because it's the same thing where all of a sudden
it might be a lie because there's just no pictures. Like obviously someone probably would have took a video or picture of that, but still pretty funny.
I don't doubt it though, because all of a sudden this dude, as long as that book comes out, all of a sudden he starts making all these TikToks. He tries to make it big on TikTok. He's throwing on all of his old jerseys in these TikToks. And it's like, stop. You're so cringe. It's not even funny.
Also, yeah, not even just
didn't
that.
he put
as soon as he
pads
announced
on?
the book?
Yeah.
As soon as he announced the whole book thing, and then we needed a quarterback, he put himself in the QB race. Like, hey, you guys can call me.
Yeah, you guys can call me. Expecting fans to be like, oh, please come back here, man. You were so good. You definitely weren't a high school wide receiver playing quarterback in the NFL. It's not what it looked like at all. Come back, save us. Stop, Robert. You would think with eyes that far apart, he would be able to at least see the pocket collapsing around him, but he can't. Can't sneak up on that guy. No, he couldn't do it. No pocket presence.
Last season, Washington went after, or was it 2 seasons ago? Washington went after Amari Cooper. And
2 years ago.
And obviously Dallas overbid them and was able to bring back Amari Cooper. And I think a lot has to do with relativity there, believing in Dak Prescott and wanting to stay with this guy there. They traded for him. They wanted to stay there. But apparently Dallas is going to be releasing Amari Cooper to save $20 million. The fan base is talking about bringing Amari Cooper in here as a number 2 wide receiver because Terry's better. What do you think about that, Hall? Would you sign Amari Cooper this year?
If you can get him for relatively cheap, then I would definitely kick the cans on it. Like you said, they already tried to get him 2 years ago, but he chose the better QB situation, as 99.9% of the wide receivers would do. But yeah, if you can get him for relatively cheap, I would have no problem. But if he's wanting anywhere close to wide receiver 1 number or wide receiver 1 money, and he's not a wide receiver 1 at all, I said even like you know this. I was like joking with a cracky all the time back in the day. Like Amari Cooper is not a wide receiver one. So it's all been proven now. He's not a wide receiver one. But if they want to pay him wide receiver two money, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, the 20 million per, I think obviously would not get anywhere close. I think free agency last year kind of showed how the NFL viewed the wide receiver market, and it's kind of, there's a lot of them. And so you'd be adding Amari Cooper in with Chris Godwin, with Mike Williams, Devontae Adams as these free agent targets. So maybe that would bring down his price a bit, but I think 2 years ago was the money time to go after Amari Cooper. I don't think it is now, unless it is a team-friendly deal with an early out in the clause, because I think Amari is on his way down, and I think Dallas recognizes that. They see it, and that's why they're re-signing a guy who tore his ACL instead of paying Amari Cooper, because obviously the production is not matching the price in their eyes, and that is concerning to a degree because Jerry loves his wide receivers, and he loves offensive production. Dallas early 90s when he bought the team, that's what they were about, right? And so I think it's very, very concerning. I wouldn't go after Amari Cooper. I would rather go through the draft or free agency with a bunch of these guys that are out there. You might be able to get them for a good price, unless it's a great, fantastic deal with an early out.
The one thing to remember, though, about Dallas is Dallas has a lot of players that they need to resign over the next couple of years, like players that they're going to have to if they want to keep this defense and offense strong, and it's going to be hard. So was Amari Cooper's production falling off kind of them not giving him as many touches so they could say he didn't live up to his contract and they're cutting him out and they're phasing him out like Chad Johnson said it was? Or is he really just falling off? I think Amari Cooper's still one of the better route runners in the NFL. He'd be a fantastic number 2 option, but you're right. You can't pay him number 1 wide receiver money. And thank God he didn't accept more money with us than he would have been making in Dallas, because that just would have been another contract that would have left folded up in our faces because we would have been screwed. We don't even have half the quarterback that Dallas has right now. So It would have been tough, but all things happen for a reason. Hey, maybe they'll be able to get him a little bit cheaper than last time, and he'll be able to come in here and actually be a number 2. I would be all right with that, but you can't overpay this guy. You can't overpay him.
Yeah, he can get that twice a year. Dallas revenge is like, oh, y'all released me, y'all cut me. Look what I can do, like Steelers style.
Exactly.
I think the Eagles would be a good spot for Amari Cooper.
I was actually, honestly, I already had 3 teams. I was like already thinking like the Falcons, because he'll instantly be the number 1 with Calvin Ridley leaving. The Eagles, like you said, because he can be the 1A to Devontae Smith, which that would be good for him. Or the Patriots, because he'd be the bona fide number 1 off breaks.
Yeah.
That's a great
another
one.
team
I would
that
say
I
the Raiders. He would go back to the Raiders because they traded him away. Obviously, going to Las Vegas, new coaching staff. Maybe he'd want to go back there now that Gruden is gone. Or the Colts. The Colts, obviously, T.Y. Hilton is aging.
Colts need somebody.
They're kind of losing a little bit of firepower there, and especially with Carson Wentz being terrible and then wanting to move on, they probably need more weapons.
Another team that I could see actually investing in wide receiver. I don't think that they would overpay for one of these top guys, but the Giants, I know that they put in a lot of money over the last couple of years in investment. I mean, a first-round wide receiver. They also signed one of the biggest wide receivers in free agency last year, but they need all the help Daniel Jones could get. As you could see, obviously last year it didn't really work out. I mean, until they actually get Tony on the field, he's pointless, and they need to, because the guy can ball.
Giants have like no cap space.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying they're not going to sign one of these top guys, but they're going to invest in it eventually. I mean, they're going to either do something in the draft early on, because Daniel Jones is not going to be anything without targets. He's just not that guy. But they also need to invest heavy in the offensive line.
Right.
Giants are screwed pretty much.
Last thing before we get out of here, I want to ask this question. I was debating on it today, but I uploaded my quarterback rankings to Twitter, and I wanted to ask his opinion of you, Reed. Like, what are your quarterback rankings at the moment? And do you think that Matt Corral is being forgotten about and is losing momentum because of him not throwing at the combine? He obviously wasn't invited to the Senior Bowl because he's still a junior. Just out of sight, out of mind kind of thing.
Yeah, no, 100%. Matt Corral, he just kind of fallen down, not participating in the Senior Bowl. And usually that wouldn't be a big deal, but when all of the other big name quarterbacks are participating in it, then people are going to forget about it. It's not his fault. He wasn't eligible to, but it is what it is. And then, with the whole combine not participating really in much at all, if anything, besides getting measured, then, people are just starting to forget about him. He's still a good quarterback. I think teams know that, so they don't forget about him, but the media and the fans do. And quarterback rankings, for me personally, I'm going to put Malik at number 1 right now, followed by Pickett 2A and Ritter 2B. I think it really just depends on what you want. Like, who would I rather have? I don't know right now. I think Pickett will help you out earlier, but I think Ritter has a higher upside. So, and then after that, I guess you kind of got to go Sam Howell at 4. I don't know. After that, it gets kind of murky. Or I'm sorry, then Matt Corral, then Sam Howell. So it's tough. But yeah, I saw what you did, Kyle. I saw you up there causing a stir.
Like usual, baby. I'm just over here just trying to piss everyone off on a Friday, apparently. But
Find where I said that. I'll wait.
My quarterback rankings, number 1 quarterback right now, I have Desmond Ritter. Quarterback number 2 is Malik Willis. Quarterback 3 is Kenny Pickett. And then I put a line there saying those are the top 3 quarterbacks in this draft. Those are the ones that are going to be drafted in the first round. Behind that, sitting at 4, I have Sam Howell, and then Matt Corral behind him with Bailey Zapp and Carson Strong behind them there. But I really like that list. The only reason with Kenny Pickett, it almost gives me like Matt Castle kind of vibes, and like that kind of backup quarterback that like he makes the right throws.
Disrespectful.
But he doesn't. He makes the right throws. He gets the ball out on time and everything. But it's not like he really elevates that squad. He just does the bare minimum. So that's how I view him. But then Malik Willis, I just think he has a lot to go. I know a lot of people are arguing about if he's ready to start right away week 1. I don't think he is. I think if there's anybody that you can fit into a team that's well built that can start week 1 of these rookies, I think it's Desmond Ritter by far. Because each of these quarterbacks, every strength that this quarterback class has, Desmond Ritter has himself. For example, Malik Willis with his running ability. Desmond Ritter runs a 4.5. He's very fast. He's athletic. He can get outside the pocket. He runs quick. Kenny Pickett, a good diagnoser with the football. He knows where to go with the football. So does Desmond Ritter. Sam Howell, he has a cannon for an arm. He could get the ball downfield. So does Desmond Ritter. So obviously there's an ongoing theme.
One thing I will say, though, is Pickett is more accurate than Desmond Ritter as of right now.
Yes, you're right. You're fine. You beat me there.
But Ritter has a better arm, and I mean, he's faster. I mean, Pickett's no slouch himself getting out of the pocket. But yeah, you're right. I mean,
one scout did say today that Kenny Pickett has the most catchable ball, and if you know what that means in scout speak, that means it's flying a little slow. What do you think, Hall?
Nah. Most catchable ball means you're putting it right on the money. You don't got to like work extra hard to catch it. But so for this ranking, are we going like day 1 or are we going like long term? No, seriously, are we going like long term as far as like projection? Or are we going like from day 1 of camp? Who's like, what's your ranking?
Yeah, what do you think is better? Like, what would you think is more realistic for like long term, right?
Okay, long term. So long term, I would go
because I did short term. I did week 1 starting.
Okay, well, I'll go your route then.
No, go long term because
no. I was gonna go week 1. I was gonna go short term anyway. I was gonna go week 1, like So right now I got Pickett at 1, Willis at 2, Ritter at 3, probably Matt Corral at 4, but that's only because we haven't really seen anything of him since that bowl game. And 5 is gonna be Sam Howell, and then probably Carson Strong at 6, Zappy at 7. But the reason I got Pickett at 1 is because, like you guys said, he's accurate. He's the most accurate of this whole group. He's easily can come in from day 1, be the starter. I know Desmond Ritter can, but with his mechanics and the accuracy issue, I don't know if you want to throw him out there just off of week 1, like right away until he gets that cleaned up a little bit. But I definitely think, like you said, the scouts say he has the most catchable ball, which in my belief, I think that means that he throws a nice tight spiral that's easily catchable as far as like you don't got to.
That's what I've always thought too.
Yeah, you don't got to work for it.
So Kyle, let's see who's interpreting
right
this
into
wrong.
that web, the
Google
sweet
it.
spot. But yeah.
Because Brett Favre always threw really, really hard balls that would break people's hands because of how hard he threw it, which made it very hard to catch.
He didn't throw a catchable ball. Yeah,
that's not a catchable ball.
Well, that's what I'm. No, he would hit you on the numbers and he would break people's hands.
Yeah, but you can't catch it. Yeah, okay, I guess.
Because of how hard he was throwing, and that's what I mean. It's more catchable when it's soft, almost like a softball.
Well, yeah, but I don't think that's a bad. I think that Favre, most people would agree, probably threw a little too hard.
So the biggest
throws with touch.
That's what a lot of receivers say. Break your fingers.
The biggest misconception about the small hands with Kenny Pickett is everyone saying that it's a correlation with fumbling the football, which is false. That's such lazy thinking. Think small hands equals fumbles. It means having grip on the football and being able to spin that ball with velocity and throwing it in tight windows. That's what the issue is, and that's what I'm saying. The scout is basically
he does a good job. He's done a good job throwing in tight windows. Back at this last year's film.
But guess what? In the NFL, the football is bigger than it is in college.
Yeah.
But real quick before we get out of here, sorry, what were you saying, Hall?
No, I was just gonna say, like the arm strength, like obviously Ritter and Willis got better arm strength, and his arm strength definitely got to like tighten up a little bit because, like you said, the windows are smaller, people are faster in the NFL. But if you got touch and anticipation like Kenny Pickett does, you can kind of make up for that.
You can.
Also, it's interesting
Drew
to
Brees
see.
And Peyton Manning showed that a lot.
Right. It's also interesting to see if the gloves actually do make up for that lack of hand size, or what. Like if that's in his head, if it actually does affect it. Because we saw Kurt Warner wear gloves, we saw Phillip Rivers wear gloves. Granted, those are up towards the end of their careers. Teddy Bridgewater's always wearing gloves.
Yep.
So it's weird. We wonder if that actually works or not.
Real quick, I'm going to list a bunch of players that have been that have corroborated and said they did meet with Washington at the NFL Combine. Treylon Burks, Matt Corral, Sam Howell, Desmond Ritter, Malik Willis. That should have been known that they were going to meet with those guys. But Odi Ogbinia, defensive tackle from UCLA. We have Troy Anderson, obviously the linebacker from Montana State that we talked about earlier. Christian Harris, the linebacker of Alabama, also met with the Washington Commanders recently, which is great to hear. And then Chad Muma, the linebacker from Wyoming, just announced that he did meet with Washington.
Real fast, another random thing is in years past, that hasn't meant anything until Ron Rivera and them got here. Like, when Ron and them are meeting with somebody usually, or if they put in a lot of investment with them, then that usually means that they like that person a lot.
Yeah,
like
they're
that.
doing their
but
due
like
diligence.
In past regimes like Jay Gruden and stuff, you'd hear people be like all the time, like, "Oh, I never even talked to Washington. I didn't know that they were interested in me, and they took me." Like, so
you're so right about that. It's so
I'm
funny
always
to look back at it.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in this episode. Comment. What do you guys think about our quarterback rankings? How stupid am I for putting Desmond Ritter at number 1? Or comment on your questions that ask. Like Michael Haas was asking some fantastic questions about some guys. So we want to hear from you. What do you think about the Combine? Have your draft rankings changed at all for these wide receivers or quarterbacks ever since the Combine results have come in? We want to hear from you guys. I love interacting with you guys on YouTube and on Twitter. All right, everybody. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
And don't forget to click that bell, like, and subscribe, so that way we can make money from you.
Why do you do that? All right, everybody. We'll see you guys on Monday. Be safe this weekend. Enjoy the Combine. And remember, Washington football. Woo! Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. And if you liked what you saw, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you get notified when anything new is uploaded to the channel. Also, we just launched theburgundyzone.com. You can go there and find all of our latest news, articles, and the latest episodes that are uploaded. Again, we also have the Discord chat server, where all of our VIP folks are in, like Andy Burrows, Scott Hartley, Sergio Martin is in there as well. Don't miss out on the Discord chat server. Go and check that out. Until next time, everybody, Washington football. Woo!